There's an India Connect, which we always want to return to on this network. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar with us. Thanks so very much for being with us. What do these elections mean for us here in India in terms of foreign policy, in terms of America's outreach to India and vice versa? Does it really make a difference who's in power?
Well, it does make a difference in terms of the individual who's there, because we've seen, of course, as far as the general development of relations between India and the United States is concerned, particularly over the last 24 years, I think we've seen a very significant upward trend. That upward trend over the last 10 years has been particularly remarkable. And we've seen 3 presidents during that: Barack Obama first for the first 2.5 years, then Donald Trump for 4 years, and now Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So by and large, there seems to be a bilateral consensus, both in India as well as in the United States, that these are important relationships, this US and India, and it needs to be nurtured, it needs to be taken forward, and it needs to be expanded. So I think whoever comes, but of course there'll be specificities, both of style as well as of substance. So I think that is what we are, watching very carefully, like the whole world is watching very carefully. Because
but isn't it fascinating, Ambassador, that we've got Kamala Harris over there on the screen, somebody with an Indian background. We've got somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy in the United States and so many others. You've got a Samosa caucus in the United States. Indian Americans are doing so phenomenally well politically in the American sort of process. Is that not something which is new, relatively speaking, and just an indicator of how strong the community has really begun?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, as far as economically, Indian communities are strong in many parts of the world. But politically, for them to be so influential, I think that is quite remarkable. And I recall my own time in the US when I was there. And at that time, economically, they were doing well. But politically, they have started coming out. Now you have Kamala Harris here. Also on the Republican side, you have an Indian imprint. And there are a large number of congressmen and also governors who are there. So yes, political influence is also growing, and of course their economic prosperity is there, and their contributions to the different parties whenever the elections take place, I think that is also very well welcomed. And in that context, they are co-opted, they are reached out to in a very proactive manner.
If we look at the entire issue of trade between India and the United States, some would suggest that if Trump comes back into power, then on the entire issue of trade and disputes over trade, Trump would really try and push home an American advantage. That's something we fought off in the past. Do you foresee something like that happening if Trump were to come to power?
Yes, I think trade is going to be a very significant issue if Trump were to come back to power. But then we also see, what he's been threatening to do. Of course, it is a moot point whether, he will carry out those threats completely. For instance, if he says that I'm going to impose 60% import duties on goods coming in from China, and if that is the case, and if Chinese products are not allowed to get to the US market, I think that would be advantage for India, because we could have some manufacturing, some investments coming India way, and we could benefit. But otherwise, as far as the positive trade balance, the trade surplus that India has with the United States, it is quite minimal, in fact. India is about the 11th or the 12th largest trade surplus. There are so many other countries ahead of us, of course, led by China, and then others like Mexico, Vietnam, many countries in Europe also. So I think there is a room for having a dialogue with the Trump team as and when, if that were to come about.
Do you believe that irrespective of whether it's Trump or Harris, China will be their primary foreign policy focus? And therefore there is that natural convergence between India and our concerns over China and what America perceives in the Asia-Pacific region?
Let me put this in 2 ways, 2 comments here. Number one, yes, it was Donald Trump who really reinvigorated the Quad in November 2017. Yeah. Quad had been sort of, quite in the background and was not really active from 2007 till 2017. And we saw the whole concept of Indo-Pacific and the Quad coming to light in life in 2017. But it was really Joe Biden who, when he became the president, he came up with the first summit, the first virtual summit within 2 months of his presidency, and then the first in-person summit in September of 2021. And now we've had, over the last 3 odd years, we've had 6 summits. So that has all been focused on China. So I would imagine that whether it is Trump or it is Kamala Harris who takes forward the policies of Joe Biden, I think China is going to be there. But that having been said, let me also make this point that India-US partnership, strategic partnership, is not limited only to China. China is an important element. China is a component. Just to give you an example, as I said, our upward trend in terms of the bilateral ties started in 2000. China was identified as a systemic threat by the Americans in 2017 in the National Security Strategy. From 2000 to 2017, even the United States was very happy to work with China. You would recall that when Barack Obama visited China in 2009, first year of becoming the president, there was talk of G2 as to how the two countries could really manage. So they were going very well, doing very well with China. There was also talk of Chinmerica, earlier. Right. So China was not all that much of a factor in terms of the stronger, closer ties between India and the United States. So today, it is defense, it is technology, it is manufacturing, it is so many things in addition to China. China is one of the elements.
Okay. Let's go across to Sanjay Muralidharan, National Vice President of the College of Democrats of America. Sanjay, thanks very much for being with us. In your mind, are there any last-second issues, right, which have crept up in, let's say, the last 48 hours, which actually might impact, number one, voter turnout, and number two, which way voters might vote?
Well, I think that most of the issues are largely set in stone. We're looking at an election where the primary issues are in regards to the economy, as well as just the stability of our democracy as a whole, immigration and abortion. And I think across the board on these issues, Kamala Harris far overperforms Donald Trump, especially when it comes to the Indian American community. Indian Americans are a predominantly upper middle class community. We're actually the wealthiest minority group within the United States. And when we're looking to policies that impact us, we're looking to see what's going to grant the middle class the best upper hand, right? And if you're looking at both Trump versus Harris, Trump is someone who wants to impose unilateral tariffs that are estimated to cause up to a boost of $4,000 in annual expenditures for everyday middle-class families, whereas Kamala Harris herself has committed not to raising taxes for the middle class. On the issue of abortion, Kamala Harris has been an equivocal supporter of a woman's right to choose, ensuring that every Americans of all ages have the access to the essential care that is reproductive rights, whereas Donald Trump was the literal architect of the end of Roe v. Wade. So I think largely the issues in this election are pretty set in stone, and across the board, Kamala Harris is the best candidate.